Today, we're going to step into the world of Vanessa Trump. You might think you know her, but trust me, there's a lot more to this story than meets the eye.
Yeah, so true. It's easy to kind of just see figures like Vanessa through the lens of their famous spouses, but she's really carved out her own path.
Exactly. And, we have this really intriguing profile from Hamari Webb to help guide us along the way. And it goes so far beyond the usual, tabloid fodder you see, It gives us glimpses into, her childhood, her career, and even, her financial savvy. It even mentions that Tiger Woods rumor.
Oh, right, that rumor. It's unconfirmed, of course, but it really highlights how quickly speculation just attaches itself to public figures, regardless of evidence.
Okay, so let's start unpacking this. The profile starts with her early life in New York City. Born in 1977, she grew up surrounded by a pretty prominent family. Her stepfather was a successful lawyer, no doubt exposed her to a world of connections and influence.
And that context is so crucial. Growing up in that environment must have really shaped her worldview and opened doors that wouldn't have been available to others. It's like a social inheritance that can be just as impactful as, financial wealth.
Right, and it's interesting to think about how that upbringing might have prepared her, or maybe even didn't prepare her for the huge scrutiny that she faced as part of the Trump family.
It's a great point, and her modeling career adds another layer to this. She was navigating a pretty cutthroat industry before ever stepping into the political spotlight.
That's right. She wasn't just some overnight sensation clinging to a famous last name. This profile really emphasizes that she had a successful modeling career before she even met Donald Trump Jr. Imagine the modeling world in the late 90s and early 2000s. This was pre-social media, pre-influencer culture. You had to hustle.
Absolutely. Building a reputation back then meant pounding the pavement, going to tons of castings, relying on word of mouth. Success in that environment definitely took resilience, determination, and a thick skin.
Qualities that would certainly come in handy later on, right? Makes you wonder if those experiences in the modeling world helped steel her for the media frenzy that would surround her marriage to Donald Trump Jr.
It's a really fascinating question. The modeling world can be so brutal, demanding a ton of emotional fortitude and the ability to handle rejection. But the level of public scrutiny that comes with being a Trump, that's a whole other beast.
Speaking of, the profile doesn't really dwell too much on the marriage itself, but it does say they were married in 2005, had 5 children together, and ultimately divorced in 2018. It was a very public chapter of her life. Every little detail, from their lavish wedding at Mar-a-Lago to the eventual separation, it was all splashed across the tabloids.
Yeah, and during that time, it's really easy to just get lost in the spectacle of it all. But what we're trying to do here is look beyond the headlines and understand Vanessa as an individual, as a person.
For sure. And the profile really helps us do that. It emphasizes her dedication to her children and her effort to maintain a sense of normalcy for them, despite their kind of unusual upbringing. I can't even imagine how challenging that must be.
Oh, it's a universal struggle for parents in the public eye, trying to shield their children from the harsh realities of fame and give them some semblance of privacy. It's like a constant push and pull.
Now, before we jump into her life, post-Trump, we have to address the elephant in the room, the Tiger Woods connection. The source claims they dated before she met Donald Jr.
Okay, here's where we need to be careful. This is, pure speculation. Celebrity gossip often thrives on just hearsay and unverified claims.
Right. But even as just a rumor, it does add a layer of intrigue. It reminds us that even those seemingly entrenched in one world might have had completely different paths before. And speaking of different paths, the profile paints a picture of Vanessa forging her own identity beyond being Donald Trump Jr.'s ex-wife, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The profile highlights her philanthropic work, which seems to point to a desire to make a positive impact beyond the world of politics or social circles. And then, of course, there's her estimated net worth, $25 million.
Wow, now that's what I call making a statement. Seems like she didn't just fade into the background after the divorce.
Right. It's a really crucial detail because it points to her financial independence. That net worth comes from a combination of her family fortune and her divorce settlement. So it suggests she has a level of financial savvy and security that's not always afforded to women, especially those exiting high-profile relationships.
So true. It totally reframes the narrative. She's not a damsel in distress, but a woman who's secure and capable of charting her own course.
Exactly. And it raises some really interesting questions. How does this financial independence impact the way she's perceived? Does it challenge those traditional expectations of women in her position?
Okay. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's rewind a bit and pull out some more personal details from the profile. We know she was raised Christian, which might give us some insight into her values and how she navigates, challenging situations.
It's a good point. For a lot of people, faith provides a grounding force, like a set of principles to guide their actions and decisions.
And for someone in her position, facing that constant public scrutiny and personal upheaval, that kind of internal compass could be so valuable.
Oh, absolutely. It could offer a sense of stability and purpose amidst all the chaos.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground. Her upbringing, the modeling years, the marriage, even that Tiger Woods rumor. But there's still so much more to explore.
That's right. We've only just scratched the surface of Vanessa Trump's story.
Stay tuned, because when we come back, we'll delve deeper into her personal life, her philanthropic work, and what she's doing today, far from the shadow of the Trump dynasty. Welcome back. So we're continuing our deep dive into the life of Vanessa Trump, a woman who has proven to be a lot more than just a headline.
Right, for sure. And as we, kind of dig deeper, we uncover all these layers of resilience and ambition. And it seems like she has this clear desire to, define her own path.
Yeah, exactly. And, one of the things that really jumped out at me from the Samari Web profile is just how dedicated she seems to be to her children. She has 5 kids. And it seems like, despite all the craziness of their lives, she's determined to provide them with some sense of normalcy.
Yeah, that's a theme we see pretty often with, public figures who are also parents. It's that desire to shield their children from the spotlight, give them a chance at a childhood that's, as grounded as possible.
Oh, I know. I can't even imagine. How do you even begin to explain the media attention, the, political stuff, the online chatter? How do you explain all that to young kids, especially with a last name like Trump?
It's definitely a challenge, no doubt. But the profile suggests that Vanessa is, very intentional about what she exposes her children to, especially when it comes to, social media.
Right.
Right. It's like she's built this safe haven for them, a space where they can, just be kids without the weight of the world on their shoulders.
And speaking of safe havens, the profile also mentions her passion for, animal welfare. And this isn't just some passing interest for her. This is something she's actively involved in. It kind of suggests, she has this deep sense of compassion and a desire to make a difference, beyond just human stuff.
Right. It's interesting how all these, seemingly separate things in her life, like motherhood, philanthropy, that desire for privacy, how it all kind of weaves together to create a more complete picture of who Vanessa Trump is.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a reminder that people are, multifaceted. We can't just define them by one role or, slap a label on them. And it's these smaller details, these personal passions that really reveal who a person is. Okay, so we've talked a lot about her desire for privacy, but it's worth pointing out that she hasn't, totally retreated from public life. The profile highlights her philanthropic work, which seems to suggest that, she is still engaging with the public, but on her own terms.
Right. It's definitely a nuanced approach. It's not about chasing fame, but more about using her platform, in a way that supports causes that, she really believes in.
Like she's saying, okay, I value my privacy, but I know I have a voice and I can use it to make a difference.
And that's where her financial independence really comes into play. With an estimated net worth of $25 million, she has, the resources to support all these philanthropic things and really pursue her passions without being, beholden to anyone else.
Right. The financial security is huge. It's not just about, being comfortable. It's about, having autonomy.
Exactly. It gives her the power to make choices that are, in line with her values without, the pressure of financial dependence. And that kind of financial agency, especially for a woman in her position, is something, that we should really pay attention to.
For sure, yeah. It challenges the traditional narrative, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's not defined by, her past relationships or her last name. She's a woman of independent means, capable of charting her own course.
Totally. And when you combine that financial autonomy with, her dedication to her children, her philanthropic work, her desire for privacy, it all comes together to create this different picture.
Yeah, like a picture of a woman who is rewriting the script, defining success, completely on her own terms.
Which leads to a really fascinating question, what's next for Vanessa Trump?
Right. Well, the profile doesn't give us any concrete answers, but it kind of hints at, a future with tons of possibilities.
Well, yeah, she's definitely stepped out of the shadow of the Trump name, secured her own financial independence, and seems to have created a life that, revolves around her passions and her priorities. That's a powerful position to be in.
Yeah, it really is. So where does she go from here? What new chapters will she write?
That's the exciting part. We've explored her past and kind of unpacked the, complexities of her present, but the future is, wide open.
And with her drive, her resources, and this, newfound freedom, Vanessa Trump seems ready to, create a future that's uniquely hers. But before we get too far into speculating about, what that future might look like.
Right. We can't forget this other really interesting detail from the profile, her religious upbringing.
Oh, right. The profile mentions that she was raised Christian.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth, thinking about how that might have shaped her worldview and, played a role in her journey.
It's a really good point. For many people, faith is like, this framework for dealing with life's challenges, a source of comfort and guidance when things are tough.
And Vanessa Trump has definitely faced her fair share of, uncertainty and, ups and downs, from, the pressures of being in the public eye to the complexities of a very high-profile divorce. She's had to make tough choices and deal with intense scrutiny, from the media.
Yeah, definitely. So it's very possible that her faith has had a big impact on how she's handled all that, by offering her a sense of grounding and purpose, even when things were crazy.
Like an anchor, providing stability in the storm. And for someone who values privacy and family as much as Vanessa seems to, faith might offer her that sense of community and belonging, something that goes beyond her immediate circle.
It's an interesting layer to think about, and it kind of reinforces the idea that even these small, seemingly simple details from a person's past can really shape who they become.
Right. So we've talked about her childhood, her career, her marriage, her philanthropy, her finances, and even touched on her faith.
Yeah.
And what we've seen is a woman of strength and resilience and ambition.
Yeah, but there's this one final piece of the puzzle we need to look at. And that's how Vanessa Trump is living her life today, beyond the headlines and the shadow of her past.
So stay with us, because when we come back, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the life of Vanessa Trump by looking at this current chapter of her life, and we'll leave you with some final thoughts to chew on. All right, so we're back for the last part of our deep dive into the life of Vanessa Trump. And, after looking at all these different parts of her story, I'm kind of left with this feeling of, wow, admiration for how she's managed this really extraordinary life.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, right? We started off thinking of her as, Donald Trump Jr.'s ex-wife. But after this deep dive, what we found. We found a woman, with real depth, resilience, and this kind of quiet determination to make a life for herself, on her own terms.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good reminder that, there's always more to the story than what we see in those, flashy headlines. And this Hamari web profile, the one we've been talking about, it really shows us that. It doesn't shy away from the complicated parts of her life, but it also highlights her strength and her commitment to, creating her own path.
And that path, as we've seen, it's got all these different sides to it. She's a dedicated mom, and she's really passionate about animal welfare, and she's someone who, values her privacy, but still uses her platform to, try to do some good in the world.
Yeah, and it's that mix of, these qualities that seem like, they shouldn't go together,
right,
that make her so interesting. She's comfortable being in the spotlight, but she also really wants a life away from the cameras. She's super independent, but also really devoted to her family.
It just goes to show you, people are complex. We're full of contradictions and little things that make us unique. And that's something we should, embrace, not try to erase.
Well, 100%. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what's the one thing you think our listeners should take away from Vanessa Trump's story? What's that lasting impression, that you hope this whole exploration leaves them with?
Well, for me, it's the importance of looking past the surface. We often make these assumptions about people based on, just tiny bits of information, stuff we see in the media or hear, through the grapevine. But Vanessa Trump's story shows us that there's always more to find out, more to understand, more to appreciate about each other, if we're willing to just dig a little deeper.
That's so important. It's like a call for, for empathy, for curiosity, for a willingness to, question our own preconceived notions. And it's a reminder that even those who seem to, have it all, those who live these, these lives of privilege and fame, they still face challenges and make choices that, we can all relate to.
Totally. And, that's the beauty of these deep dives. They allow us to, connect with each other in a deeper way, to see our shared humanity and to find inspiration in places we might not expect.
So well said. And, on that note, we'll leave you to, think about Vanessa Trump's story, what it means for, for all of us. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And remember, there's always more to uncover, more to learn, more to appreciate about the world. And, and everyone in it, keep exploring.
And we'll see you next time.